Thanks for joining us once again. Today we focus on the fact that there's an $8 billion hedge fund run by Jim Chanos, and Jim assumed that Tesla was going to become his second major win as he had in the demise of Enron. So after 38 years in the investment business, in particular as a hedge fund, they just went out of business, and the fund currently has $200 million, down from its peak of $8 billion. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. We want to note we appreciate your support, and without your support, channel viability is in question. So therefore, we want to thank you for liking, subscribing, and also any comment is also appreciated. So the big news for this week is there's a guy named Jim Chanos. Over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, Jim's hedge fund has been after a number of companies that they thought would lose money. And one of those was Tesla. So we've actually had probably 5 or 7 shows about Jim Chanos, which I invite you to look for on our channel. And I thought it was interesting today because on the face of it, hey, the fund went under, so therefore, is it that big a deal to cover? And I actually think the answer is yes, because there are a lot of layers to understanding Tesla. And for those of you who are long-term investors, you definitely understand those layers pretty well. So basically, the last time I saw Jim Chanos do a piece on CNBC, which, by the way, is one of those channels that's really focused on finding and highlighting the negative aspects of Tesla. So Jim did this piece where he was talking about the Cruise and autonomous driving and the fact that they're moving along rapidly in ways that Tesla has not. And therefore, it was one of the ways that Tesla was going to lose. So over the years, much like our friend Gordon Johnson, he's really focused on trying to identify shortcomings of Tesla and use those gaps to expand a narrative relative to Tesla being a bad investment and that the company likely would go under. Now, I had a very strange encounter with Mr. Chanos. I ran into a gentleman who was on his way to dinner from DC to New York to have dinner with Jim Chanos. And this, I want to say, is November of 2 years ago. So he said to me, so what happened is, usually the number, you're allowed to invest 5% of your fund. And so Mr. Chanos, maybe 3 days later, had announced that he was limit down, i.e. 5% of the fund down on Tesla and its prospects being negative. When I had my meeting with an associate of his, we kind of discussed it, and I said to him, clearly he doesn't think Tesla's going to go anywhere, but I just want to let you know that I think the stock is about to double. And so from that period, basically in November to call it, third week of, or the next earnings announcement, so this was maybe February of that year, the stock doubled. And so this brings up a really interesting question, and that is, what the heck is going on here? That's a great question. So I think I have a little bit of the answer to this, and my argument is something called the okey doke. So for those of you who are boxing fans, you'll remember that Muhammad Ali had this technique where he used to lean on the ropes, and the competitor, maybe George Foreman, whoever it was, had a sense that he was tired and he was about to go under. And instead of that being the case, he used that rope-a-dope as a way to lure in the opponent and then beat him. And so there's a narrative about Electric and Tesla going, like there's a whole bunch of them, and we'll be rolling this out systematically depending on who the competitor was. So for now, I wanted to sort of just discuss an interesting problem that's popped up. So I want to go backwards about 5 years, even in my knowledge of Tesla. And I wanted to point out that Elon talks about first principles of physics being the underpinnings of the company. And it shows up in a lot of ways. For example, Tesla was building charging facilities and then continuing to accelerate the fastest chargers ever since they started the company. And most of the other competitors have been focused on building out, getting the car finished, and the charging network is a secondary issue. Well, as you've noticed, there's this huge problem that's come up. There are large numbers of consumers that have stopped buying EVs. And I think I know why, and this is part of the narrative of what's going on with Jim Chanos and why his funds went under trying to help Tesla into bankruptcy. So I have a friend, his name is Dr. Dwight Tyndall, he's a spine surgeon. So Dwight has enough money to buy a real nice Tesla, which is what his business partner did, and he's based in the Chicago area. So what happened was he ended up buying a Porsche, his partner bought a top-of-the-line Model S, and his partner has run into a little problema. The problem is that he's a surgeon in greater Chicago. So during the summer months, everything's cool, the car is running fine, etc. Their experienced range on a top-of-the-line Model S is during the winter months, let's call it January through March, he will go into surgery at 5, 6 o'clock at night and not get back out until 4 or 5 in the morning. And so the problem that he's had is that they don't have any charging facilities at the hospital. And so as a result, he runs into this problem where he comes out and his battery's dead. And so he's bone tired and does not want to deal with that issue, but obviously has to that early in the morning. So I kind of wanted to bring this up because if you've got a lot of money and you're buying a luxury vehicle and your office setup doesn't lend itself to recharging, and you're in a very cold climate where you could lose half your battery life just as the battery keeps itself warm in a very cold climate, all those items I think pile on to suggest that yes, there are wealthy individuals that want to be in the car and are in the car. But if you look at the map of where all the electric vehicles are, they tend to go, California #1, Texas, down to Florida as being the heaviest penetration. And the further north you go on the US map, the fewer vehicles penetrate that area. So there are a number of issues that I think that are affecting what's going on with these electric vehicles. But the biggest one is range anxiety, which has been sort of an issue from day one. Now, I believe, about level 2 charging. Tesla has plans definitely for level 3 and possibly level 4. And by the time we get to 4, I think that's a 10-minute charge that it takes to get that vehicle fully charged, which starts to compete with the 5 to 7 minutes that you'd get from regular fuel. So I believe that what's going on right now is the consumers would like to have a broad base of cars that they're buying, and their best choice is a Tesla if they don't want issues relative to charging. Now, I've been anecdotally collecting information on a charging challenge that everyone's discussing, and from what I'm getting right now, it seems as though if you look at chargers already spoken for with a car on them, number one, and number two, chargers that are not working, right now we're in this crazy situation where half the time we have folks trying to charge while on the road and they're unable to because of all the issues that I just shared with you. So the next question that comes up then is, kind of where are we going from here? And I believe the answer is until we have reliable charging networks, I think there's a huge problem. So we have some ways that we're going to get dug into this whole conversation of where vehicles are currently. But, let's put a pin into it because our next show is going to be a look back at Bob Lutz's estimate that the large OEMs would actually blow Tesla out of the water, which we've seen has not occurred. In fact, the whole party is going the opposite direction. GM has pulled back and they only have really the Bolt out there. They're going to wait a year before they put a new vehicle back out again at the large scale. VW just fired 2,000 programmers, and that's real interesting. Ford is having technical issues relative to the patent rights on all the subsystems that are being built with access to that software with partners that they've lined up as they build their electric vehicles. So instead of our Tesla destruction plan, Mr. Chanos and others had, it's actually going totally the other way. I wanted to take time out on Jim Chanos, not to just say, hey, this company went under. What I'm amazed by is that he's got a lot of smart people in his shop and he's a very sharp guy. The issue that popped up, though, is that there are certain people like Elon Musk that know their subject extremely well. And they know it so well that I have to laugh and wonder about something. You almost want to call it torture. Because the reference I made to about 5 years ago was that as I was getting to know Tesla, this stupid now question came up, which is, how many companies do you know of that build technology and 75% of their patented technology has been opened up to competitors? Which is what obviously Elon did, and it helped sort of seed the marketplace for the entire field to exist. So now that what I thought is that this open patent process that they were doing would be the demise of the company because so many competitors could easily get in and start progress towards destroying their brand. And so that has happened in terms of there are cars out there, cars are selling, but in terms of domination of Tesla, that has not occurred. It's a very big surprise. And I'm kind of stunned that Elon/Tesla's got away with it, and also that the investors who invest in Tesla and endured this management decision making are, if you will, benefiting and haven't gotten blown out by this decision making process. So what I wanted to introduce with Mr. Chanos' demise is that take a look at Tesla stock starting to storm the beaches. We have another new vehicle being introduced. We also have a lot of growth in their storage, business. We're about to start getting trucks produced. So there's a lot of new things that are piling on to make Tesla a great long-term investment. So I just have to give kudos. There are some people that are on that short-term, make some money off Tesla stock. There are others that are looking for that long vision of the company being pretty dominant. And I'd have to say, you're a wise investor if you're continuing to hang in there. Obviously, we could have some, downdrafts like we've had in the past. But I really think there are a lot of hedge funds that are in a position where they really felt like this was it when Tesla was going to dive into oblivion. And it keeps storming back like the phoenix. And in the process, the hedge funds who shorted this thing are just getting body slammed and put out of business, a la Mr. Chanos. So the argument I would make today is I don't think shorting Tesla stock is a really, really good idea. In fact, I think it's probably wise to either invest in it for the long term or, maybe some short-term situations, consider maybe hedging what you've profited on that stock. The last thing I'd wanted to address today is we do have other shows coming up. I can dive back into it. But in general, congratulations to Tesla and all of you owners. Stock prices pop back up. Don't forget what we talked about is the reverse sine curve. We have a pattern now, which we can confirm, where we're basically 10 days, 2 weeks away from the apex of the stock price as we come into the Cybertruck. And depending on how well that's received, that apex could even go higher. But it seems like we're in the apex, and as we head back in December towards another round of production and earnings numbers, that's where I think the nadir is going to be. So make hay while the sun is shining until we get to that apex end of November, early December, and then also be aware and be ready to hedge your situation on all that you've made during that period, because it takes a lot of guts to stick in there when a lot of bad news is popping up on the company stock and Elon. And hey, as you can tell, I speak Hebrew on my channel at the end. I speak Arabic, I speak Farsi, I speak Indian, German, French, all these. My agenda is peace and harmony. So I'm hoping we can have that on a global basis. But, I think the game is respecting everyone and trying to work together, I think, is where we all win. So finally, I wanted to cover my health tips for today. I'm not going to go into your 20 leg lifts a day because you already know that one. I'm really fascinated right now with the 20-minute walk every day. There's a retired psychiatrist at Georgetown I met, and he said, hey, you want to know a real secret? Whoever you speak to, ask them to every morning do at least a 20-minute walk. And the reason is that you generate endorphins while you're doing that, so you get some exercise out of the deal, plus you're self-medicating by the endorphins generated in that process. So I was like, wow. And I have to say, I've been trying it, probably half, 3/4 of the week, and it works great. So I just wanted to share that with you as something to consider. Once again, we have further suggestions down below from other doctors we've spoken to, and we look forward to your feedback on how the impact it's been having on you. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Happy holidays to you and your family. We look forward to very much to your taking time to like and subscribe if you can. Have a great day, and bye for now.